That's the first time I've seen that video, and it just, I'm sure you had a powerful reaction to it, to seeing everything that happens. The reaction I have is I see Ben and Grace and Lily and Keenan and Jonathan, and I think, like Michael said, we just love these kids. We love your kids. We're so happy that they're here because we get to do stuff like that with them and just have great experiences with them. First of all, welcome to the Black Box. This is a space we've had for 2 years now, and we are continuing to grow into it, and we will continue to grow into it, I'm sure, for many years to come. But we're really blessed to have such a great place to teach the theater arts. We use this space as a classroom, as a performance space, and as a rehearsal space, so it gets used a lot. I'm sure that Camille probably has trouble getting on the calendar when she wants to have an event like this in here. But we were able to design this space. Let me say that while the first year that this space was open, I had just come off of doing the college tours with my daughter, who was very interested in theater, and I'd been in a lot of university black box theaters. I was in one that was as nice as this, and even it had we have some things that it doesn't have, and vice versa. So we're really lucky to have this space. Most black box theaters are converted from another use. We got to build this from scratch. So we were able to have catwalks in here, which means our students can be involved in all the elements of technical theater, sound design, light design, running the sound boards and the light boards, which are the same kind of equipment that they would be using if they went straight from here into university theater, or frankly, even Broadway theater. We have, as you see, we can pull down our blackout blinds and have complete control over the light, but we can also have the blinds up on a nice day like this and not have to use electricity when we're having a class in here. The tape on the floor was put down by our 9th grade Theater 1 students this weekend, because we're going to be having rehearsals in here for things that will be happening in the Lowell Hopkins Theater. And so they taped out the shape of the steps and the stage in the Lowell Hopkins Theater so that we can rehearse those things in here. So it's really a very flexible space. We are finding our way towards ways to have more performances in here. We've tried different kinds of things every year. I think we'll do different things in here. What's so wonderful about it is we can set it up as sort of a traditional proscenium theater with this archway behind you, but we can also set it up as theater in the round, or any other way really that children or their teachers can imagine it. And that's really what's great about this space, is it challenges all of our imaginations, and that's what's fun about working in here. I want to talk briefly about why we teach the arts at Summit, and the performing arts in particular. There's a million reasons. Michael will probably know exactly how many reasons, because I'm working on a book on this very topic, and I sent him the first chapter, which is why we teach the arts, and it's like 30 pages long, but I'm going to give you the short version. So there's 3 big reasons I want to concentrate on about why we teach the arts at Summit. And I think they will go right to what Michael said at the beginning, which is that we have deep roots and we have a far reach. The first is, honestly, we believe, and Louise Fuchs believes, that teaching the arts is going to just make your kids have better lives. They're people who have studied the arts and who are involved in the arts are more engaged in their communities. They are able to understand other people better, and they just lead more interesting lives. They travel, they go to museums, they go to theater. And in the world that we live in now, there's an even more important way of expressing that, and that is that arts create global citizens. The language of dance, of music, of art is something that transcends cultures and transcends verbal language, and is something that in the flat world that we live in now, that's going to be really beneficial to our students in the future. The second reason we teach the arts is because it helps us fulfill our 6 promises. And I'm sure you've all seen a little book about the 6 promises, and those are not just things that we came up with because we thought they sounded good. Those are all things that are deeply rooted in the fabric of this school and affect everything that we do every day. And the arts takes care of all of them. It's really cool. I don't have to even make the case for state-of-the-art facilities because you're sitting in this room. One of my favorite ways that the performing arts in particular affects our kids is in giving them that sturdy confidence that we talk about. And when you see the performance opportunities that they have from when they're 4 years old until they're 15 years old, you see that we gradually ratchet up their level of responsibility and independence. And what that does is it gives them that intellectual independence that is another one of the 6 promises, but it also boosts that confidence just the right amount at each level so that they can go from singing with 60 other kids on the stage when they're 4 years old to giving a speech to the whole upper school all by themselves when they're 15 years old. And it's really a fun transition to watch as that happens, as that confidence builds over the years. Engaging the whole child, I'm going to talk about when I talk about the third reason for the performing arts. Fertile learning environment. I think if you saw this video, it'd be pretty hard to argue that the building that we're in is not a fertile learning environment. We've certainly done a great job with that. And the one that a lot of people say, well, scholarship at its best. Well, the arts aren't really scholarship. You know, you're not going to get a better SAT score because you're involved in the arts. You know, it's not the same as a math class or a history class or an English class. Well, actually, it is. Not only are the arts a really important scholastic discipline in and of themselves, but it turns out research is now starting to show us that kids who are involved in the arts get better grades in math, they get better grades in science and in English, and they do better on the SAT, and they win more awards, and they're better adjusted socially. So it's amazing what that does to these kids across the board in raising the level of scholarship at the school. The third reason that we teach the arts, and this is where I'm going to get into the sixth promise about engaging the whole child, is directly related to why scholarship goes up with kids who are involved in the arts. And that is what goes on in your brain when you're doing the arts. Now, if the first reason I gave you about improving our lives was rooted deeply in Mrs. Futrell's vision for the school, this is where we start talking about reach, because this is research that's going on right now. And we're learning more about this every day. But the fact of the matter is we know now that our brains work in a lot of different ways, okay? Howard Gardner called them multiple intelligences. Mel Levine calls them neurodevelopmental systems, I believe. And I started looking at these lists of these intelligences, how we relate to things in space, how we deal with sequencing things in time, how we deal with language, how we deal with interpersonal relationships, how we deal with internal reflections, our relationship with ourselves. All of these, the brain operates differently, and I would put forth that the only place where we ask our students to engage every one of those systems at the same time in the same room is on the stages of our theater, where they have to work with other students, they have to memorize lines and work with language, they have to work with interpersonal relationships, temporal sequencing, moving their bodies in space. All these different things happen at the same time. So theater, I think, is basically circuit training for your brain. And so if we can strengthen those intelligences, scholarship is going to go up. One of the other really cool things that happens in your brain when you do the arts is that the arts are intimately connected with emotion. And when you have strong emotions, your brain releases these really cool chemicals that without them it is very difficult to learn. And with them it is very easy to learn. And guess what? When you leave the theater, or you leave the art studio, or you leave the robotics lab, and you go back to your math class, those chemicals are still floating around in your brain. And you're actually more able to learn math or English or history because you were just in a theater rehearsal. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. The last thing I'll talk about is, because you all look like you're pretty grown up to me, the F word. And that is fun. Some people tend to dismiss the arts because kids are actually having a good time. And again, fun is this, turns out, is this amazing learning tool. And it's the same thing. It becomes a motivator, and that motivation can carry over into other areas of their lives, whether it be athletics or social or other academic disciplines. So we're okay with your kids having fun. That's not going to bother us. And we really look forward to seeing what your kids are going to do in this space, on the stage of the Hopkins Theater, in these art studios, and every place else around this fertile campus where we're going to try to engage every single part of their brain as much of the time as we can. Thanks.